Okay, I think we are live now. So welcome everybody to the Node.js Build Working Group meeting. I think it's the first one that we do in September, if I'm correct. So yeah, let's check out the agenda. And please, if you can take a moment to write your names, add yourself to the present list. Let me set that on the chat. Okay. Okay, so first of all, there is any announcement that anyone want to make? Okay, I think there is no announcement. So I think the first topic in the agenda, we have quite a few topics in the agenda. So feel free to just change or arrange the topic if you think there is something more important, just in order to cover the most important ones. But yeah, let's start with the first one, which is issue 3491 in the Node.js build team, which is regarding your Digi3rd code signing certificate expires in 19 days.
Okay, I can take this. Well, I can explain what this is. This is regarding the code signing certificate on Windows. So our Windows binary and installer, we sign with a certificate that's actually purchased. The current one is, well, the last few have been bought from DigiCert. So DigiCert have emailed us to tell us that the certificate we bought 3 years ago is expiring in December. So we now have well, less than 90 days now. A warning that if we do not renew that certificate, then after December, we won't be able to sign our Windows binaries. That certificate will expire. So the usual process for this in the past has been to liaise with the OpenJS Foundation to get them to pay for the renewal or new certificate. I did post in this issue, so I opened this issue because we got an email to the build alias, and since we'll have to liaise with the Linux, well, with the OpenJS Foundation anyway to get the payment for this, whether it makes sense to, as part of the wider efforts in terms of the the Sovereign Tech Fund Linux Foundation taking over, or bits of the handling of things like the account relationships and stuff, whether this is a thing that we could be using as a sort of pilot, or tying it up in that. So the important thing is that we renew before December.
Yep. Okay.
But maybe we can also then talk to people on the OpenJS side to see how this should be managed going forwards. Whether we can do that before, ideally, if we can do that before we renew and then renew under the new model, that would be great. But otherwise, we'll have to renew under the existing, how we've done it before, and then talk about how to change things over later on. So there's two parts to this. One is to obviously get and pay for the new certificate, and then one of the reasons I want to involve the OpenJS Foundation is we've been using DigiCert as long as I look through the last few issues where we've done the renewals, and it looks like DigiCert is the one we've been using. But equally, I don't think it necessarily absolutely has to be them. So again, it's whether that's why I preferred to talk to the OpenJS Foundation to find out, are they happy that we continue doing that, or if they have a preferred other provider of Windows signing certificates, maybe this would be the opportunity to say, like, this is the natural breakpoint. If they want us to go to a different certificate provider, this would be the point to move. Otherwise, potentially we'd be buying a certificate, and then like the next opportunity to to go somewhere else would be once that expires, or you'll be wasting the amount of money you've paid for the next certificate. So yeah, this has been open for awareness. Obviously, the nearer we get to December, the more urgent it will be. But yeah, I've opened this just because we've now had that warning email that says 90 days until it expires, and that I think I opened this last week. So we're now less than 90 days, and so similar to the macOS notarization thing, it's like we have a deadline. As long as we can make sure things are happening ahead of the deadline, and confident that we And then obviously once we get the certificate, it'll have to be rolled out onto the machines. I don't know if Stefan will be around to do that. I don't think it will be too hard to do as long as you can log into the Windows machines. So although it will be work, maybe it won't be too bad as long as we can get it, the new certificate ahead of time, you know, not trying to rush it on the last day.
Yep. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, so that was that. That's all I had to say. If someone wants to volunteer to drive that, that's great. Otherwise, you know, we'll tackle that, I guess, next time. Or
Okay.
yeah, I guess we need to. I guess maybe when we get to further items in the agenda, talk more about where we think we currently are with the Sovereign Tech Fund Linux, Linux Foundation IT project.
Yeah, but I agree. Definitely, it's a good option to see how we can fit the new fund and the support for that. So yeah, I think that was a super good update. So I think the biggest challenge is arriving to December without having the certificate renewed. That's going to be like the biggest challenge.
Yeah, and I think it's not as drastic as macOS. So on macOS, if you don't have the notarization stuff, you just can't run the binary. I think on Windows you get warned, but I don't think it will refuse to run the binary.
Okay.
But what might break is if we don't renew the certificate, the actual signing process may refuse to sign the binary with an expired certificate. So actually the workflow would break, right? But the binaries, you know, in the worst case, we could release a binary that's unsigned. That would be it wouldn't be a nice look publicly. But you know, we could, in the worst case, release an unsigned binary and people be able to run it. It's just whether you know, then reducing their confidence in what we've produced.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, definitely we have some integrity checks in place with the PGP signatures and so on. So anyone can do some checks and so on. But yeah, I agree that we should have that fix. Yeah, 100%. Okay. Yeah, next topic in the agenda, if we're okay to move ahead, is a Cloudflare configuration update. It was a request. The issue is 3473 in the build repo. Let me have a look for that one.
So this one, I saw Claudio was frustrated that there's been not much progress on this, and obviously it requires time from people that have access to Cloudflare to understand the changes being proposed and make them. I did see that Michael Dawson did some changes yesterday, but not the whole set, so there's still work to be done there. I guess it's also tied up with, there's a separate issue open on the admin repo about expanding access to Cloudflare to people outside of the build working group. I'm not sure that, you know, we've had the opportunity to discuss that, or if it's even something we're comfortable, you know, allowing people outside the working group access to Cloudflare. That's not the, so we have given people read access, but the issue on the admin task is asking for write access to Cloudflare. And I'm not convinced yet that we've got a consensus that the build working group will be happy to do that. But yeah, equally, I did see you posting a different issue or something like that about the issue we had about Terraform, you know, going to Terraform and using that for Cloudflare, which I think long term, if we can get there, would probably be a better solution than trying to expand the number of people that have access to Cloudflare.
Yeah, I was just about replying to one of the issues related to that on GitHub with that. Yeah, because I think the challenge for us is, I think specifically in the case of Cloudflare, like in general lines, there are not a lot of changes in Cloudflare overall, just aside that now we made the changes on the website and now we are going to use R2 for the binary. So that's going to be like a period that we do a lot of changes. But I think overall was a kind of quiet. I think it's one of the most sensitive, as you say before, like pieces in the infrastructure. So not a lot of people have access to it. And I think also the challenge that, yeah, maybe not everybody's aware of, like when we do any kind of change on Cloudflare, or at least from my side, it's like we try to check it out and be kind of monitoring and online if something happened for the next 1 or 2 days, because sometimes you don't realize the problems that you make on Cloudflare messing up with the configuration easily, or at least in the first minute. So sometimes it requires some time for us to monitor. So I think that's one of the things that at least myself delight a little bit to try to help with this issue, specifically on the rules, because in the past I changed some rules, and it was kind of easy because I have some time to track. But overall I was traveling the last 2 months, so it was a little bit tricky for me to be online. But I think when we move ahead with the Terraform step, it's going to be easier because, first of all, everybody will see how the configuration looks like. So we don't have to worry anymore to providing reading access to specific individuals. That's going to be one fixed problem. And also another thing is that anyone can provide a unified way of requesting changes as well, which I think it's going to be easier also for us to, approve the changes. And we are going to see that automatically, how it's going to happen and what is going to affect. And also we can do rollback easily. So that way I think it's easier for us to control the flow. Even we can allow other people to making changes on that repositories in terms of approve it and so on. And we don't have to share the secrets necessarily with them. So that way also we may want to open a little bit a circle of people who can press that green button to go live, right? But a lot of discussion on that. I think regarding Terraform, we have a long discussion for a while because it's a new tool in the team. So first of all, I think we need to be all of us confident enough on the tool. And the second thing also is it's going to change a little bit the way that we manage the secrets. So right now we don't use any infra secret in any GitHub action. But if we start to do this kind of automation with the Terraform, for example, somehow we already have to trust the GitHub Actions as a platform that can make changes in the infrastructure. So that's something also to discuss. And the same goes, for example, for a pull request that is like kind of pending / blocked for the emails one that is running an automation. So it's including the token that we use to update Mailgun. I think it's Mailgun. And basically you can have it on a pull request. You create a pull request, you accept it, and when it goes main, apply the new rules, for example. So that kind of automations we can do, but it all depends if we feel comfortable or not on adding the secrets to the GitHub Actions first thing, and also to include the Terraform as a tool for the team if we feel comfortable.
It's a good question. Obviously the GitHub action, if we can secure the secret properly, would be less maintenance for us, because I can see the other way, which is, we set up webhooks on a server we own, and then the secret stays on some server that we have access to. But that means then we have to set the webhook up, which probably won't be too bad because we already had that in place when we were building the website on our own servers, which we're not doing anymore because that's now on Vercel. But we have a mechanism in place to listen for webhooks. So that, for example, when something changes in the build repo, that could trigger a webhook on a server that we own, and then that can run some arbitrary node process, and that could then start, a command line Terraform client that could then reflect changes. I guess an interesting development in Terraform is whether we stick with Terraform or go with, is it OpenTofu, which is the open source fork. That's an interesting thing that's happened out there in the sort of community. But I think the basic idea of whether we trust GitHub, I guess that's one that needs to sort of go through, amongst all the build infra people and see if anyone actually has objections or concerns. I guess what the worst, I was going to say the worst that can happen is that the secret gets compromised and we rotate the secrets, but I guess the worst that can happen is the secret gets compromised and we're not aware that it's been compromised.
There are some vectors that we may need to explore. So we may ask some support for that, like from GitHub or from the MVP program, we can ask support and see if they can provide us. I think if we are clear on the potential vectors of attack for the GitHub Actions, I think that's okay, because The secret is kind of stored like in the secret way of a
Yeah, I
storage
mean,
secret they have. But
yeah, GitHub does have a mechanism for
yep.
Secrets. So we are using that elsewhere in the organization for things like publishing to NPM. I don't think we've got anything near the sort of core infrastructure level of control that this would be. But maybe that is reasonable.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't object to it out of hand. Obviously, I'd like to be reasonably confident that we're confident that we can secure the secret and change it, if, update it if needs be. That's probably okay. But yeah, it definitely needs to be circulated like one last time through everyone in build and make sure there's no objections.
Yeah, I think I can create an issue, specifically, just asking for this as an idea. Like, are we comfortable with using GitHub Action with this kind of level of access? That's one thing, and also overall asking the people, like, are we confident enough to start using Terraform as a tool in the team? And then, at least as a global ideas, and let's see if anybody objects. And I think that will open us the door for many things in the future, easily, and automations.
Yeah. At least from what I saw of what you had with the DNS entries, that looked perfectly fine. I'm guessing extending that Terraform stuff to things like the sort of things that are being asked for in this issue, which is like rules updates. I guess it'll be something similar where you've got like the value of the regular expression or whatever the thing is, and then you would see that in the change requests. So
100% we can extend it to the full cycle. DNS records and the rules, and there are other more things that we can basically track everything and bring those changes in. So
It's also worth mentioning regarding the rsync change that hopefully that would really simplify the deployment of the website, and anything else would. I hope it would rarely require any changes on the DNS side, since it's supposed to be static.
Yeah, I think the main draw to me would be the ability to just roll something back, because, like you say, at the moment, if we're doing what we have been doing, which is we get an issue like this that's got a whole list of things to change, you kind of have to record what the old values were, make the change, and then be sort of on the lookout that if you have to roll it back, you then have to manually go and update everything that you changed and sort of update back to the old values, and whether you're confident that you've properly captured the old state at the time. And if it was a simple like revert this commit and then redeploy, that sounds a lot. I think that would give us much more confidence about making changes. I mean, not that we make the changes without reviewing and being reasonably confident, but it would give an added sense of security that if we missed something, we can just go back and then try again.
That's going to be a big change for us. Also in terms of monitoring and so on, because anytime that something goes wrong, we can just roll back. Because right now, for example, when I do any change, I record my screen like in a video, so I remember all the steps and so on. And then if I need to go back, it's like I rewatch the video and then I change the rules. But so that way is going to be easy, because infrastructure as code is one of the good things. Like it's the same as the code that we use day to day to any other thing. So that's going to be a big change for us. Okay. That's super good.
So I guess on this one, it's if someone has time to spare to understand the changes, do them, and then, like you say, stick around and be prepared to roll anything back, then that's great. Otherwise, our preferred solution is to try and proceed with down the Terraform route and see if we can do things that way.
That sounds super good. Okay, I think next topic in the agenda is issue 3466, which is related to Jagged. Jagged's joining to the build team. I have a pending onboarding session with Jagged, so I will catch up with him privately and see where we can fit that the slot in the agenda, and if he willing to join us. And I will help him also with granting the accesses and so on, and getting familiar with it. Also, Michael asked to join that session. If anyone is interested also in joining that session, feel free to just DM me or whatever on Slack, so I can include you in the invitations and find a good slot that works for you also.
Yeah, I think you'll need like one of the Michaels or myself to add you guys to the GitHub groups.
Yep.
But yeah, other than that, you should be able to do the rest of the onboarding yourself. It will just be the GitHub group bits, which I think is the bits that you need like an owner, an organization owner to do those.
Yep.
But if Michael Dawson is involved, then he'll have access to do that.
Yep. That's fantastic. Yep. Yeah, that's the only step that I need some help. The others I think are fine. Yeah, I was taking out. Yeah.
I think I have access as well if you need to.
Oh yes, you do as well, Mosh. Yes. Sorry.
Okay. Okay, so that opened the window a little bit. Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, I will ping you.
So whoever is available.
Yep.
Actually, to be fair, also Yagiza. So he could add himself, actually. Since
That is
he's
true.
a TSP member.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. That's good. Okay, so next topic in the agenda, exciting new things. So issue 3461, which is related to the R2 workers and the new Cloudflare infrastructure.
So if everyone here is fine with that, I'll contact the people involved in the website team, which is I think Claudio and Flaky5, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll try to see how we continue with them. Maybe I'll open a Slack channel and start working on the migration. Any concerns or something we should like specific?
No, my only concern is to make sure we don't disrupt, the current download or make it worse. As long as at the moment this is like setting something up in parallel, and then we can switch over later on. Yeah, I'm okay with that. My only concern with any of the transformation is try to keep disruption as low as possible to the community, because otherwise we will hear from the community if we disrupt things any worse than is currently happening with the 500 errors and stuff.
Yep.
Okay, great. So obviously, I think changing the DNS would be the last step, which we will update before doing that. So,
but I'm guessing we can set up, if necessary, like a subdomain or something to test out our to storage, and then like I said, when we're happy with it, to do a switch over later on.
Okay, so I'll work on that with them.
Yeah, from my side on this, I have started to work on a POC repository for checking out the integrity of the distribution of the binaries. So we might want to use that potentially to check out the integrity when we finish the migration, that no files were like remove it accidentally, or any checksum has changed or something in that direction. So if you want, Moshe, I can share you later on Slack the links and so on. So
yeah, I saw that.
Okay, so that's good. And also regarding that, I was talking with the people behind the Virus Total. I don't know if you heard of this. It's basically I think it's a Google company. Yeah, it's actually a Google company right now that they are using. They providing this website. Let me share that on on the chat. So basically you can scan for viruses and stuff like that on URLs on binaries. So I was discussing with them if they can provide us like for free an extended version of the API, like with more bigger amount of downloads, because I think currently in the free version you have like one per day, but they might willing to help us to scan all of the URLs that we have. So basically we can send the URLs of the binaries, they scan them, and just in case we see, you know, like there is any problem that any antivirus in the world recognize as any of the binaries of any version of Node as a problematic or whatever, so we are aware of, because I have seen in the past some people complaining about, especially in Windows, that the antivirus is detecting Node.js installer as a malicious package, where actually it's not at all. So yeah, I was thinking that maybe this give us a lot of option to close one of those issues directly with the link, you know, like, yeah, that was already checked, not on our side, you know. But yeah, as an additional thing, well, not related to the R2 migration, but as a part of this thing, because I have now the URLs map and so on. So if you're interested in following this path, I can continue researching about it.
I mean, I guess my only concern is if it flags anything, what would we actually do? I mean, how would we tell if is a real thing or just another false positive, but with this tooling rather than whatever the other antivirus tooling?
Yeah.
Especially if it's like an old download that, you know, we're confident the integrity is there. To my knowledge, we never really tried to remove anything intentionally from the previous downloads. So
yeah,
maybe we'll cross that bridge if we ever get to it. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, unless we're absolutely confident that the report's a proper report, and maybe other checkers would also be triggered on the same or similar detection. But yeah, I mean,
I think
the only real way that can happen is if, you know, something in the infrastructure has been compromised, and I think we'd have much bigger issues then than a bad download binary. Related to the checker, I remember you opened some issues about some of the really historic downloads, missing files, or having this much. There's not much we can do about that. That's all lost in the annals of time. So yeah, it's great if you've spotted those discrepancies, but there's really not much we can do. And I don't want to be editing files that, you know, they're all historic. I want to start messing around with some files from, you know, years and years ago.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that's it's nice, it's informative, but I don't really think there's much we can do.
I agree. Yeah, I don't think anybody today is using Node.js 0.12 or something like that today. But
I'm pretty certain somebody somewhere out there is downloading it on a CI system somewhere to check compatibility.
But basically those issues that I opened were like more or less like things that I saw when running the automated script, just to document the process, that they were some there, so just in case one day someone says something. But yeah, the rest of the things were fine. Also with the regarding the false positive with this virus total, the files that I was checking were successfully fine, so I didn't have any false positive in the past. But yeah, I will check it out also to see if it become an annoying tool or a really useful tool for us. So on the first run, I will check it out, and if it's become okay, I can fix it.
I guess what I would say is if we are planning to have a long-term usage of virus total, and I think you alluded to talking to them about getting some sort of extended access, that maybe needs to involve the OpenJS Foundation in lieu of the bigger discussion about them managing relationships with other providers. That you know, if that's going to be a long-term thing, we need to get them to agree that they will manage that relationship. So again, you know, just in case, or if we're happy that, you know, if that relationship goes sour, we can remove that and not suffer any negative downsides or whatever.
It makes total sense. Okay, that was a Good update. Okay. Let's go. Yeah, I think the next topic in the agenda was the second factor authorization. Turn it on for the DigiCert account. So I think that was just an informative note. So I think nobody complains.
I think the only thing to say on that one is I don't think anyone's actually logged into the account to turn it on. So I think it's still an action. Whoever is next logging into that account.
Okay.
But again, that might have to happen as part of the renewal. So that DigiCert account is the one for the first thing we discussed, which is that signing certificate. So if we choose to renew the certificate through DigiCert, then we will need to get back into the account. And I think at that point we have the two-factor authentication, and whoever does it, please try and do it in a way that we can record the the details of the sequence repo, so that you don't become the sole person who can log into it. Or otherwise, we might have to get the Linux, Foundation to enable the two-factor authentication. But yeah, that's still a thing. No one's actually fixed that yet. So yeah, let's leave that open until that's resolved.
Yep, that's a fair point. Okay. Next topic in the agenda is 3443 from the build team repository, which is part of the onboarding of the Linux Foundation IT to the Node.js Build team. So I think regarding this topic, there are two important things to discuss, or at least more urgent things. Oh, I think Michael also is here. Let me add him, promote to panelist. Yeah, my fault, Michael. You might be quite well there. I didn't see you on the attendee. Sorry. This doesn't beep when new attendees arrive. So welcome, Michael. So yeah, regarding this issue for the Linux Foundation IT, there are two things that are important here. One is if we are happy to provide them access to Cloudflare, like at reading access only. And if we are happy also to providing like access for Jenkins in order to, maybe we need to create a new role or team or something like that to provide them access for read the configuration, at least for the testing CI, and also add them to the release CI if we are comfortable with that in reading access to the content and also to the configuration, so they can have a better look on what plugins do we have and things like that. And if we feel comfortable later on in the future to let them edit things, that's a separate discussion. But this discussion was more like a read-only access for the three things: for the Cloudflare, for the Jenkins admin level reading, and the same for the other Jenkins servers for the release ones. Yeah, I don't know. How do you feel about it?
I am okay with it in principle. I don't know how many people they want to give access to. If it's more than one, then I think with Jenkins, I'd rather have a group, a GitHub group that we can add people to and manage it through GitHub Teams. We would still need to add an entry into the Jenkins security matrix, so to give that read access, but I wouldn't want to do more than one entry because it gets very fiddly otherwise to unpick and repick, especially if we do security releases, because that involves manually switching things in and out. And yeah, it should be possible to do read-only access in Jenkins. You just need to figure out which bits in the matrix to select when you add the row. So yeah, I think I'm in favor of that. If we do need a GitHub group, then I think we need to open an issue on the admin repo just to tell the owners, TSC, that we want to create a GitHub group for the Linux Foundation people, and then we explain exactly why we want to give them read access. And it's to do with that. They did come to a TSC meeting recently to give a broad overview of the Sovereign Tech Fund. It sort of was still very high level, and I think a lot of us, both in TSC and I think on Build as well, we're trying to see what the actual detail of what it's going to end up looking like. And as part of that, if that is giving them some read access so that they can see for themselves, what we currently have, and then reconcile that with what they're comfortable taking on. I mean, I know we've been told that they're happy to take on as much as we want to give them, but I still think this is going to be a complicated handover, whatever we decide we're comfortable giving giving to the Linux Foundation. And yeah, I think yeah, just keeping everyone informed of what we're doing and why, and that what we're doing, if that's we're only at a certain stage because we're still in discovery or still trying to hammer out details, then we need to be clear about that, because not everyone is aware, possibly not even on this call. I don't think everyone's aware of all the discussions that have been going on with the Linux Foundation about them taking over a lot of the responsibilities of running infrastructure. But again, we don't have the details about how much of that would be, whether that would just be at the account management level, or whether that would go further in terms of change management on machines. That still needs to be ironed out and agreed to. And all through this, we've been told they're not going to grab anything that we haven't given them. So it's not a power grab by any means by the foundation. This is a discussion with the foundation as to what we can hand over, if there are things we can hand over that either we're uncomfortable managing. So that includes, for example, billing. I suspect nobody on this call wants to be on the hook for unexpected charges to any of the service providers that we may incur. And that has been on the way anyway. So some of our infrastructure accounts are managed, and we have a Linux Foundation person on for billing purposes on those accounts. That seems like a natural thing to extend to all the account providers that we're currently using in the build CI. But yeah, and then that's also then extend to do we, so for example, the Cloudflare stuff, I mean, yes, we're looking at Terraform, but maybe ultimately at one point we say, okay, we hand the keys over to the Linux Foundation in terms of making changes, and then from then on, even if we wanted to make changes to DNS, that would be a ticket raised with the Linux Foundation. That would be an extreme case, but maybe that is something we'd be comfortable doing if we do not feel that within this team we want to have that ongoing burden of maintaining that thing. Because the one thing that we have to remember is everyone here is volunteering their time, so we have no service level agreements or statements of how much we expect any of this stuff to be online and working. It's like best effort based on and part of the idea of handing stuff over to the Linux Foundation is that we should actually get like some idea of like service levels that we would expect, that if we raise a ticket, some sort of expectation that a ticket would be seen within, I don't know what that number would be, but that would be it would be a more formal kind of body running the parts of the infrastructure. So that's where this is coming from. And it's definitely not a handover date, we hand everything over. It's going to be a long process of deciding what we can hand over, and then how we would hand that over, and what it would actually look like once it's handed over. And it's probably, I expect it will have to be piecemeal. I can't see it being a big bang. What we have is so complicated and diverse that I don't think it's possible to just hand everything over in one day. We'd have to agree piece by piece and hand things over piece by piece. Some things I think will be less controversial. Like I said, billing, I suspect nobody here really wants to be the billing contact for thing. But then other things, we might have more discussions as to, what does that actually mean? If we hand over certain levels of access, does that mean then that we can't immediately make changes? But then maybe we're comfortable with that. But then it depends on the detail when we get to that level of, if it's like the Jenkins server, who looks after the Jenkins server, is that we still manage it, but IT like runs the machines. So if like the machine goes down or needs upgrades, that's tickets, or is it they would actually take over the admin of the Jenkins instances, which is possible. And then we might then discuss like levels of access, like maybe we still have write access to jobs, but not to, adding agents. I don't know. It's all speculative at the moment. Until we actually have a plan of what's being proposed, it's hard to say yes or no. I think from my point of view, at least, I'm still broadly in favor of exploring what's possible. And, if there's something that we don't want to do and they're willing to take on, that seems like an easy thing to assent to. But again, you know, everyone on this call and in the work group, they have a say in this. And if you have concerns, raise them either in issues or existing issues or new issues, or even an email, you know, if you don't want to talk about it in public. But I think this is a good opportunity to revisit how we've been running the infrastructure and looking after the infrastructure. You know, we don't necessarily have to get out of the whole infrastructure running completely. I mean, I imagine there will still be a build working group at the end of all this, but it's up to us to define how, what that would look like and how much, and you know, how much are we confident that we can run on a day-to-day basis, bearing in mind that, you know, no one here is dedicated to this role. You know, it's all volunteered, as you know, best we can do efforts. So that's what I want to say. You know, obviously people in the past who've been involved, Rod, I'll mention by name explicitly, have gone, in my opinion, far and above what you might reasonably expect people to do to keep this running. So I don't think we can all become replacements for him. I wouldn't expect anyone to do that. But I mean, that is the reality, is that we've been very fortunate in Build to have people involved previously that have, in my opinion, gone beyond, you know, what you might necessarily imagine a volunteer would dedicate to keeping this project running. And yeah, the people in this call, again, you know, I appreciate everything we're doing and trying to do. I know it's hard. So yeah, I think, you know, it is on us to explore all our options, even if it's to draw lines and say, well, actually, we don't think that might work, or actually, we do think that will work. But you know, that is up to us. It's all up to us.
Yeah, side note from me on that. I think also that we currently we have been in some meetings in the past for this. I think we did a lot of work in terms of research and understanding how big is the scope of the build team in terms of machines, infrastructure, providers, and tons of things. So I think it was a very, very interesting exercise to understand also all of the things that we have on top of the table. So we might recover also some of these to improve the documentations that we have. But yeah, also side note from my side, I think there is no big, I mean, if I remember well, there is not going to be any new meeting soon for this, but if anyone wants to specifically be in these kind of discussions involved, just drop us a DM or whatever if you are not in the calendar invites already, so we can include you and you can participate. But yeah, I think overall the most important thing is that we are not going to make any big decision without asking all the team. So in that sense, we can be quiet and calm in terms of okay, and I think bring us a lot of opportunity, as Richard said, in terms of, you know, maybe transferring things that we are not interested in, keeping, maintaining a site of billing or things like that, right? So yeah, I think it's an important update for us. So we have the last 12 minutes of the meeting. I think there are a lot of issues in the agenda. So I highlighted, like in bold letter, the topics that I think are the most relevant one to discuss on this call, but not very sure if you want to remove one or include another one also. So please check it out the agenda. So basically one is the nomination from Claudio. The other one is the transition for notary tool, which I think is important to discuss because there's a deadline for that. And also discussing about the Cloudflare access for the web infra team, which I think is an ongoing discussion recently. But
so we mentioned that earlier. I sort of alluded, I don't think we've discussed it in Build about whether we're okay with expanding the access to Cloudflare. So this will be write access. So we have given read access to people outside of Build. I'm reasonably okay with giving read access to people we trust or are known to the project at least. But write access, I am a bit hesitant to hand that outside of the Build work group at this moment in time. I could be convinced if other people in this working group feel otherwise. But you know, ultimately, this working group at the moment is the one chartered with the responsibility of, you know, securing the infrastructure. And I at the moment, there is another issue about how the web infra team is managed over there in the website repo. But again, I don't think anyone I don't think people in the build working group have reviewed that, or I mean, I think they mentioned that the build working group would be able to propose or vet people in the web infra team, but again, I don't believe we've agreed to that. So there are some assumptions being made in web infra that I think we need to, as a working group, either have a position on whether that's something we're comfortable getting involved there, or no, we've not been asked yet. So, we need either further discussions or that isn't something we want to do. So, all I would say on that one is there are issues opened. The way the charter is, we're the ones responsible. The TSC delegated the responsibility for the infrastructure to the build working group. So the TSC may have opinions, but ultimately it's the build working groups. We decide if we're happy or not with that, and we can decide either way. So if we say we're not happy, we can go back and say, look, we're not happy with this. That there might be further discussions about what we did to resolve this. But I think from our point of view, for Cloudflare, the earlier discussion was, unless someone disagrees, that our preferred solution would be to go down the Terraform route. That is our preferred solution for managing changes to Cloudflare. And if people have time to do small changes requested, while we're not yet ready to do the Terraform stuff, then that's great. If people have time, please help out. But otherwise, rather than expanding access, I think our first preference will be to go the Terraform route. I think that's the only way we have at the moment of. I don't want to speak for the whole working group, but I kind of feel that.
Yeah, I agree.
That would keep the accountability, I guess, within this team. That we will control access to Terraform through whatever process, automation process, or landing process on the build repo, and then that. Change requests come through, and we would still have the accountability of ultimately the change comes through one of us merging something into the build repo. But that's my opinion. So but be aware those there are some issues in the website repository and the admin repo talking about expanding access to Cloudflare, born out frustration that the earlier issue about changes to Cloudflare hasn't been enacted on, but then that they haven't been enacted on because people in the working group haven't had time to, who have access, haven't had the time to set aside to make the change and be confident that they can pick up any pieces if anything goes awry. So, I think, I'm happy to go back with that position if that's something we agree on, that, we're not ready yet to expand access to Cloudflare on a right basis. I mean, read access, I think we can do that within reason, for people that are known to the project, but write access, I'm very hesitant to just hand that out.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think Terraform is the path to go, and I think we are okay with the read access. Not very sure. Yeah, and I think with the writing access is challenging. Yeah. So yeah, I think that was a good summary, Richard.
I agree, and with the work on R2, I'll try to make myself more available until there's both that deployed and the ability to Terraform DNS changes. I'll try to make myself more available to help with Cloudflare changes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Moshe.
Sure.
I'm guessing if unless anyone has something more important to discuss, I suspect the notarization stuff is probably what we should spend the rest of the time discussing.
Yep. Yeah, notarization, good news. I have been working a lot on that with Michael Dawson. We made a clone of the pipeline for the IO release. We have been testing the new workflow. So the new workflow basically introduced the notarization tool. So currently we use Gone as a regular, but if you're using Xcode version that is compatible with Notary tool, you're going to use Notary tool. Basic requests open for that on the Node.js repository. It's mentioned on the issue. I can share also the link on the chat. So if you can have a look and approve it, if you haven't, that will be fine. I need to solve a little conflict because there were some changes on main. But I think aside of that, that should be fine. We want to test it out with the nightly builds right now to see if that works. There is only one environmental variable added, which is the notarization team ID, if I remember well, to that one. So now includes the team. And basically that is using the same credentials as before. So we use the same for both. And the idea with the nightly tool is to check that everything works fine as expected. And then we can just basically promote that. And in the future, the idea is to remove the support for Gone, which it's going to happen anyway. I think if I remember well, the 1st of November. So basically this means for us that we cannot use macOS 10.15 for releasing anymore. We need to do the signing with the macOS 11 at least that has the Xcode version compatible with Notary tool. That's going to be the big change for us. So we can gradually, repurpose the 10.15 machines for releases that we have in org and so on. And we can also try to find, also to remove the reference to Gone on the original script. So that's it. There is the issue. Well, in the issue, you have the last comment, which has the next step more or less. So there you can see the follow-up actions. But the critical piece, which was use notarization tool, the Notary tool to notarize, has been tested at least. So yeah, now we need to see that works perfect with the integration and so on.
That sounds good. Are you okay with making the changes to allow for the nightly builds to get them using?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I will talk with Michael for that, just to be sure that, because I'm going to be available the next 3 days, and then I go on holidays like for 2 to 3 weeks. I'm going to be back
okay.
on the middle of October, but this piece is working and Michael is aware of the code and so on. So that's will be fine. And I will finish the rest of the pieces, which is removing Gone and so on later on. So I think the major challenge for us is going to be to modify the release job, like the iOS release to don't include the 10.15 machines. That's the only thing.
We don't need to modify the job. We modify the version selector Groovy script.
Yeah, that's it. But I think Michael knows how to do that. Actually, I don't know how. So so basically, that's the only big blocker, let's say, or risk that I see.
When we get to that point, yeah, Michael know. I also know. So yeah, when we get to that point, that should be doable without having to update the Jenkins job.
Exactly.
We could do that as well, but yeah, the actual selection of what runs where is that version selector Groovy script. So yeah, assuming we've got it working on like Node 21, which I think I did see has already been changed so that it's not building on 10.15. So it's going to only build on 11. Once we're happy that's working, then yeah, we can start moving the other release lines.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, last 2 minutes. Do we have time for an additional topic?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Okay, so the last topic then in the agenda for the critical one is like the 3426, which is related to the self-nomination of Claudio to the build team, which I think, if I remember well, the big challenge for us is the temporality of the access, because right now I think like how we consider the team in terms of access to infrastructure is for like a long-term support. But if it's a temporary access, then it's a little bit tricky for the infrastructure machines, if I remember well, but not very sure.
Yeah, definitely for infra.
Yep.
We haven't parachuted anyone straight into infra. We've normally insisted they go through like a test level access and then maybe increasing levels of access, but I don't think we've ever parachuted anyone directly into build infra. So that will be out of the question. Access to like test level, I'm more relaxed about that. It's similar to what you're doing with your geese. So yeah, if people want to champion that and go ahead and be onboarding, feel free. But yeah, the temporary thing is a bit of a concern. We haven't, in my memory, rotated secrets at all. So, you know, if you have access to test, you have access to the SSH keys to log into the test machine. We have taken people out of test, but we haven't actually rotated the keys or removed access, which I guess is a little bit of a security. You know, it's not great in terms of, you know, technically if we take someone out of the team, we should be going through and rotating keys, but then that means updating all the machines to, you know, have updated keys, which I guess we could do via Ansible, but it's fiddly. So again, it's kind of, if we know it's only going to be temporary, it's going to be a bit challenging.
Yep. Yeah, I think temporality is going to be one of the biggest challenges here.
I don't know what else to say on this. And I guess the question is test level access actually what he wants, or is he, again, trying to get access to the Cloudflare to move on the other things that he's had frustrations with the website stuff? And if the answer is actually what he's really after is Cloudflare access, then that then goes back to the previous discussions we've had. If he wants to join Build in order to get access to that, then that's possible. The temporary thing is still going to be an issue, but joining Build, well, we've got a pathway for that. It's you join like test level and then, you know, demonstrate your stickability that you're going to be around for a while, and ability to be to competency and or the ability to, you know, proceed cautiously. So we have a path for getting people into Build, but that's my view.
His message in the issue doesn't seem to say that he wants access. It seems he wants to participate, to be in the meetings and to participate in the decision making.
He can just turn up to the working group meetings. I mean, they're all public. If that's all he wants to do, then yeah, I just extend out, you know, to him. The meetings are public. He's free to come and join and take part in discussions. I mean, that's also possible. I wouldn't block people participating in the working group. Yeah, I can't remember exactly what we're saying governance, but in other working groups, I don't want to gate membership of working groups based on, you know, like for Build, you know, I don't want to force people to say, yes, you have to take on responsibility for maintaining some of this infrastructure in order to join Build. You're perfectly, I'm, from my point of view, I welcome people to come to the meetings and, you know, participate constructively. But and yeah, I guess tied up then back to something we discussed right at the top of the meeting, which is meeting times and, you know, whether to shift at least the other meeting slot to a more convenient slot.
Okay, yeah, I think we are out of time. Any additional thing before we close?
Maybe yes. If any one of you has time to help updating all of our machines so that they can compile C++20, that would be awesome. Because if I'm the only one doing that, it will be months, if not years, until it's done.
Do we know which machines, or is it still a kind of see what's failing and then manually patch them up? It's okay if you don't know.
Yeah, there's no definitive list. I know a few, but
okay, yeah,
I can try to compile a precise list in the related issue, if that helps.
Yeah, I know Windows is one, which I'm hoping Stefan shows up again at some point soon to move some of those things on.
Windows is. I'm not too.
I mean, it's sort of.
I think it will be fine. Windows. Yeah. We have more issues with all the Linuxes and yeah.
I think I think the IBM platforms have GCC 10 available, so that should be okay for GCC 20. Sorry, C++ 20. I think, like you said, the various Linux flavors, we do need the alternative to Ubuntu 18 to run, a lot of the workflows on. If we can get Ubuntu 20 or 22.04, that will probably fix that. And I think you said Debian 10 doesn't have GCC 10, which probably means we need to get Debian 11 into the testing matrix. I guess one of the things I haven't checked is SmartOS. I don't know what version of GCC we're using there.
I did the update. It was easy.
That's fine.
It's fine.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I guess going around all the Linuxes, I guess we're okay that the current Xcode is fine from a LLVM point of view with C++ 20. I mean, I would hope so, given we're moving up.
Yeah, it doesn't have full support, but I think that it's at least enough to compile current V8.
Okay. Yeah, I may be able to help out with the machine updates. Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, I guess, related to that, I guess, is the whole Node 21. So, whenever we need to do to infrastructure, including, if it's C++ 20, assuming the aim is to get that for Node 21. Node 21 is less than a month away. So, yeah, we need to make try and prioritize anything related.
Yeah, I'm afraid this change won't be possible for Node 10 21, but that's okay. It's not a long-term support release.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, anything additional? Anything else? Sorry. Okay, so I think that's officially all for the Build Team agenda today. So thank you for joining. See you soon.